question I have been asking myself repeatedly. As you all know, Laos has historically resisted change and has been very, very slow to change. I think part of the reason for resistance to change is that the Lao Communist Party has had a very slow leadership transition. Many of the top Lao leaders were from the first generation revolutionary fighters. And even after they retired, they still have very strong influence over party and government's policies and decisions. For example, even today, the former president, Khamtai Siphandon, is said to still exert substantial influence over party decisions. Nonetheless, like it or not, mortality is slowly taking its toll on the first generation leaders. Slowly, but surely, one by one, many of them have passed on. And this has become much clearer since the 10th Party Congress held in January this year. The leadership torch is being passed on to a younger generation in both the Politburo and the cabinet. While the post of the party secretary and president is held by a first-generation revolutionary and a former general, Bunyang Vorachit, the cabinet has now quite a number of younger ministers who are more educated, less linked to the first-generation old guard, and also tend to have a more international perspective. For example, Thongloun Sisulit, the former foreign minister and a second-generation revolutionary leader, now heads the cabinet as his prime minister and is now the second highest ranking person in the Politburo. I keep asking myself, would such leadership transition lead to some positive change? Many people inside Laos think so and hope so. Maybe it's more hope, but whatever it is, we always need to hope. Since Thongloun Sisulit became prime minister in April this year, he has taken a number of actions that have won the hearts and minds of many Lao. For example, he has taken strong actions to halt the export of timber and stop illegal wildlife trade. And openly, he had talked about corruption among government officials as the cause for tax leakages. He has also issued a temporary halt on approving any new public infrastructure projects until after a thorough inspection and report of the status of outstanding projects is completed. All these actions have gained him praise from the public. Will this trend continue? Will some success in tackling the issues give the new government confidence to take on some other hot-button issues like illegal land concessions, address abuses of forced evictions without proper compensation, stop environmental contamination through indiscriminate use of banned chemicals, and so on? Inside Laos, the opinions are divided. The more skeptical observers of the opinion that these actions are cosmetic and are not very different from similar promises made by the previous government when they first came into power. The skeptics say, once the new government has become more entrenched, it will be business as usual. However, the optimists say this time round, it will be a little different. This time round, they say, there is some signs of a real desire to address the worst form of corruption and misuse of power by provincial authorities. The younger group, this latter group also say the younger ministers are more open to change and are more aware of the importance of a good international image. And while many of the younger generation leaders are very well aware that even though the Lao public would not overtly criticize government abuses, there is real anger among segments of the population that have been severely affected by the misuse of power. And they're also aware that even if the media inside the country is controlled, many Lao people now have access to international media and the social media. And they also know very well that the regime cannot completely block out the influence of social media and its influence on the young. Some made the comment that out of sheer pragmatism for the regime's own survival, Laos must project an image, a better image of a modernizing state. The regime badly wants Laos to become better integrated into the regional and global economy, increase confidence of investors, and to continue to attract donor funds. To do so, Laos needs to clean up its image, improve its business and management system, and attract higher level investment beyond resource extraction related investment. Laos knows that to attract this kind of investments, it will need to improve transparency in the investment laws, better and more efficient public management systems, and increase human resource capacity. But what about issues related to human rights and expansion of civil society space and democracy? Can we expect much change? On this issue, most observers are not too optimistic, and neither am I. However, in just a couple of days, Laos will be in the limelight. It will play host to the ASEAN Summit meeting. A lot of attention will be focused on Laos. There has already been a lot of articles in the press speculating what kind of leadership style and substance Laos will show at the summit meeting, and how Laos will handle a number of sensitive regional issues, like the issue on the South China Sea, and its vision on advancing the concept of building a people-centered ASEAN community, as well as on other trade and investment issues. Judging from all the preparations done so far, the Lao government wants this event to be a success and to demonstrate to the world that it is a credible regional and economic, and diplomatic player. Also, Laos will be welcoming for the first time since the founding of the Lao People's Democratic Republic a sitting president of the United States, Mr. Barack Obama. The upcoming visit of President Obama has already created quite a buzz in Vientiane, and all eyes will be focused on what President Obama has to say at the summit meeting. And in addition to President Obama, the ASEAN Summit will also be attended by heads of states, not only from the 9 ASEAN countries, other ASEAN countries, but the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon and many other world leaders will be present. I believe that the ASEAN Summit provides some opportunities for world leaders like President Obama, the UN Secretary General, and other leaders to engage the Lao in a dialogue, apart from in discussion on issues of trade and investment. This will be an opportunity to raise issues on Laos' human rights record and other basic rights, including the importance of opening civil society space for greater people's participation. Such dialogue between Obama and the Secretary General, Ban Ki-moon, and other concerned world leaders may not lead to any immediate change on the human rights front, but they can at least remind the Lao that improving its human rights records and relaxing control on civil society will in fact lead to real dividend for improved economic and social development in the long run. On a personal level, I also hope that President Obama, Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, and other ASEAN leaders will directly ask the Lao leaders about the fate of Sombat. Will the Lao leaders brush off the queries by resorting to the standard response that the police are still investigating? I don't know, but I hope not. I hope that this time round, they will show some goodwill and some sincerity by agreeing to accept international assistance and conduct a serious and transparent investigation as to what happened to Sombat. Maybe it is pie in the sky, but whatever the response, I can never give up hope, and I will never be deterred from my search. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me just say a few quick words about the ASEAN Summit to put this in a little bit of context. It's important when we talk about the failure of the Lao government to respect basic civil and political rights and the freedom of civil society to engage and act in issues of rights and development, to understand that this ASEAN Leaders Summit this year will be the first summit that has taken place that has not had an ASEAN People's Forum, ASEAN Civil Society Conference meeting take place parallel to that summit in the host country. Every year since 2005, ASEAN People's Forums have been taking place in the host countries, even in countries like Vietnam, countries like Myanmar, but in Laos, the government basically would not permit it to go forward. And this was not for a lack of trying by civil society to find ways to meet concerns that the government had. But ultimately, the government was saying very clearly that they were going to interfere or not permit various different topics to be discussed. That included issues related to, of course, Sombath Somphone and enforced disappearances, but it was much broader than that as well. Discussions on mega projects like hydropower, discussions on issues related to land, discussions of the status of indigenous persons, and discussions on LGBT rights were also things that Lao civil society I put in parentheses because we believe that they're representing in many ways the views of government. A representative said to various ASEAN civil society leaders in explaining why there was a problem for this meeting to go forward. Ultimately, there was also no sufficient guarantees from the government for the safety of people from Laos who might want to participate in these ASEAN People Forum meetings. Obviously, there was a great deal of concern based on the enforced disappearance of Sombat that people who might come to that meeting and present critical views would not have their safety guaranteed. So this is not business as usual when it goes for ASEAN civil society in Laos, because ASEAN civil society will not be there, unlike every year previous to this meeting. From the point of view of Human Rights Watch, an organization that's based in New York, we see this visit to Laos as a human rights test for President Obama and his administration. You know, are they prepared to come to Southeast Asia and speak publicly about the disappearance of such a prominent person as Sombath Somphone and talk about the ongoing rights violations that are taking place in Laos? You know, are they prepared to engage in a systematic way, both behind closed doors, but also in front of the world media on issues of human rights? We expect President Obama to raise these sensitive issues and to say that he's raised them when asked by the international media. And we hope that President Obama will meet that test because it is important, as the first sitting U.S. president to ever visit Laos, that he set the tone for U.S.-Lao relations and also for the relations of Laos with other world leaders who care about human rights. So with that, I'd like to open the floor for questions. This is a press conference, so I'd like to ask that we give preference to media folks first, If you have questions, please proceed to the mic in the back. Give your name and identify yourself. Please also indicate who you're directing the question to. And we'll take questions until there are no more questions. Yeah. Well, okay, you can, since no one's rushing the mic, you can please, Kun Kraisak, please go ahead. Kraisak Chunavan.
Sombat is like a big brother. We call him I Sombat here in Thailand. He is a very well-known Lao concerned person for his social and community inside Laos. But on the other side of the river, along the ASEAN areas, we often meet with Sombat. He's very highly regarded, and his disappearance is still a how we say, big loss to many of the NGOs, particularly of the ASEAN people that I've worked with all my life. I've worked with the Lao government too, but many years back, but I never thought that we would see what we see today, the repression, the state impunity. The gentleman from the UN did mention something, and Shumen did mention something. I'm sorry we've never met Shumen, but now we have. But what happens in Laos, we feel that we are part guilty of it. Thailand is. What is not mentioned, which is within the diplomatic tradition of the UN and yourself too, Shumen, is the fact that China and Thailand has been exploiting the natural resources in Laos. Upon the, I would say, the encouragement of the Lao government, without care or concern for its people. And we feel that our only connection to the Laotian communities that have been affected by Thai mega projects is Mr. Sombat, who is now gone. We feel very bad about that. Now, the Laotians are afraid even to cross the river to have meetings with us. There are, I think, several issues at hand here as to the disappearance of Mr. Sombat, because we in Thailand, we want to meet in Laos. When the EU ASEAN People's Forum is organized, we need a collaborator from the Laos side, and Mr. Sombat facilitated us. And we do not hold back on our languages, because the freedom that we have here is expressed in Laos, and that might have affected Mr. Sombat. The expression is totally against the mega projects like the Sayapuri Dam on the mainstream of the Mekong, which does MRC specialists, engineers throughout the world have expressed the fact that it will affect millions of Laos, Thais, particularly Cambodian and Vietnamese, over 60 million people will be affected by this dam. The second dam would be Don Sahong. I was just in that area, and there are hundreds of people from the Cambodian side who oppose this dam. Again, this gigantic dam, although lesser than Sayaburi Dam, is right on the spawning area of over 100 species of fish in the Mekong, including the Mekong dolphin. Now, this is the reason why today I'm here, and we've held many meetings in commemoration of the disappearance of Mr. Sombat. Privately ourselves, with monks praying for him in Ubon, in Chiang Rai, and we speak of him a lot in Chiang Mai. So he is remembered as one of the heroes of this area. We consider him our brother, and for solidarity that we hold with the initiative for Sombat, because like 8 others have disappeared. In Thailand, human rights defenders, about 82 have disappeared for the past 10 years. So we're not trying to compete with the Laotian, but being a democratic country, which is no longer since the coup, we are also suffer as you have been suffering. And all our courage to you, Shumeng, and Walden, and others who have worked very hard on the case of Mr. Sombat's disappearance.
Thank you very much. That was former Senator Kraisak Chunhavan who spoke there, for people who didn't know that. The floor is open. Any questions, please?
Arnaud Debus with Radio France International. My question is related to the foreign aid. Laos is a country which is receiving a very big amount of foreign aid. At the same time, the human rights situation is quite bad. Do you think that there is a problem there, and that maybe this foreign aid agency, be them connected to international organizations and international NGOs, should be more aware of the human rights situation?
Okay, so I will start on this one. Thank you, Arnaud. Maybe first on that, and also to echo what has been said by the previous speaker, because I think it's very much linked. There are a number of development activities now in Laos, and we are concerned about. We talk about large-scale development project. We talk about land concession, Chinese companies, many. For the dam, the current dam, I think it's a Malaysian company. And obviously the question is, there is a lot of money coming to Lao PDR now, investment. And the question is, what is the level of accountability when it comes to human rights? As I said in my presentation at the beginning, I think the problem in Lao PDR at the moment is that we don't really have proper mechanism of accountability. So obviously we have to work in that direction and to strengthen, but at the same time when it comes to investment, I think yes, indeed, we have a responsibility to raise awareness about the human rights concern we have, and to ensure that donors, investors, they are taking human rights on board. From that perspective, I think, I mean, it's very much linked to the debate or the discussion, ongoing discussion in the region on business and human rights. Social corporate responsibility. There are, I think, issues that we need to talk a little bit more in the region, because I think this is a concern more and more in not only Laos, but many other countries. Yeah.
No, please.
Andre, your question as to whether the organizations inside the country and dispensing all that aid is aware of the human rights situation, they are aware. They know, but they will not outrightly criticize the government. They may talk about it in very general terms, but they will not outrightly confront government on specific issues or specific cases. I think that goes deep into the heart of the relationship between aid, trade, and impact on the people. To be honest, even the international development community, whether bilateral, NGO, or multilateral, their interest is largely to maintain good relations with the government and to ensure that their presence inside Laos will not be jeopardized. They don't want the government to take any action to make any of their staff persona non grata, or worse still, throw the organization out. I've talked to many of them, and they have said openly that it's important to continue the engagement. Another factor, I think, is that maybe outside people don't realize. When you have discussions and negotiations with the Lao are very charming, very, very inviting. And many of the people who work in the international community, I was just talking to Phil, they get taken in by the charm, by the generosity, and by the way the Lao people would accept openly whatever recommendations. They will not outrightly reject any direct recommendations. The issue is, what do you do with that? Phil said they learn from the Thai. Maybe they share the same cultural traits. Non-confrontational, very polite, very, very charming. By the time some of these people understand what is that they have been played along, it's time for them to move to the next duty station. This is one of the biggest challenges. Thank you.
I would add a couple things here. If you talk to development practitioners, they will consistently say, whether it's coming from the World Bank or coming from a international NGO, that participation and ownership are critical aspects of any successful development project. But if you look at Laos, there is no local empowerment. It is top-down, project-driven development. It is wait for a budget and then do something depending on what the project document says, and only if the government agreed in advance. When you talk to people, whether they be bilateral, multilateral donors, or they're international NGO people working in Laos, they will privately say to you that trying to get a quality project done in Laos is one of the most infuriating processes that you have to deal with. It is, there's so